Shall we take a look at today's front pages? The Guardian says Tory MP Neil Parish faces an inquiry over the claims that he watched pornography in the House of Commons chamber.
Tory MPs are urging Neil Parish to quit now. They fear he'll damage the party in the local elections. That's on the front of the Times.
The Mail says police have been told to investigate Labour's lies over the Beergate party. The paper reports that cabinet ministers have now joined calls for a new probe into the so-called scandal engulfing Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner. OK, let's chat through some of those then with broadcaster Pete Price and anthropologist Marianne Ochota. Morning. Good
morning.
Express, Marianne. And the cost of living, they've got a new survey out, a new poll, and cost of living is very top of the agenda.
Absolutely, and entirely understandably. So obviously we've got the local elections coming up. People are canvassing, knocking on doors. You're getting all those leaflets through your doors and whatnot.
Oh, it's non-stop, that.
Well, I guess that's good, isn't it? You're supposed to read them.
I've only had one leaflet.
Oh,
the Green Party, one leaflet.
Oh, I get loads. I just think, what a waste of paper.
Yeah, it is.
Awful. Can't Google it.
Well, you can. Are you going to?
Do you think anything on one of those bits of paper would change your mind about who to vote for?
Do you know what? So I've got a postal vote, and I actually sat and read their little leaflets and genuinely made a decision.
Really?
I kind of went, oh, maybe it's this one or maybe it's this one, and went for the one who's I thought had written a better leaflet.
All right. Oh, well, there you go.
Well, you're going for the better layout artist then, are you?
No.
Sorry.
Content
content
rather than
good.
design.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the Express has done a survey about what people think are the most important issues. So everyone loves a survey, doesn't it? Because it sort of boils down what the nation thinks, assuming that the survey is, representative. So key topics of the day: cost of living crisis. 72% of people. I mean, it's looming large, and it hasn't even, let's be honest, those energy price hikes only came in at the start of this month. So it's
hasn't even hit
the screw hasn't even turned yet. NHS capacity. Bear in mind, we're going into summer, so to some extent that seasonal impact is going to be less. But again, the autumn looks a bit grim already, doesn't it? The economy, the Ukraine war, how we're going to care for our elderly and pay for that. Freedom of speech, randomly. 53% of people are worried about freedom of speech.
Oh, well, that's interesting, though, isn't it? It's interesting. People are feeling that they need to be able to air their views.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think freedom of speech has gone out of the window, and I now don't do a phone-in anymore because I can't. You have to think of every word that comes out of your head. We've nearly had rows back there, just getting the paper story sorted. I have to speak my mind.
Rows,
oh, no, for 50 years. No, for 50 years, I have spoke about freedom of speech without crossing the line, and now you don't even know where the line is anymore.
No.
But I think it's right to be mindful of what we say and question those assumptions. Some of the language... all it takes is to watch one of those old TV shows that everyone thought was hilarious 15 years ago, and you watch it now and your jaw's on the floor going, wait, hang on a minute, there's jokes about people of colour, there's jokes about women, there's jokes about all sorts of things that just wouldn't be acceptable now, and rightly so. Don't make a joke about someone in a wheelchair. In what world is that funny? To be fair, you guys are making jokes about mother-in-laws. I don't think that's funny either.
No, we tell you.
No, it's outrageous. Well, it's misogynistic, isn't it? It's just...
See, you're wrong there. You just said puff. You can't say puff. Puffing and puffing.
Oh, no. I'll be getting cancelled.
So, that's not the same as freedom of speech.
No, it's not.
But anyway...
But it's very interesting that Express readers feel that that's under threat, obviously, in some way.
Everyone's having a go about the cost of living, and rightly so. But we have been through an unbelievable pandemic which has taken chunks of money and altered everything. And people are jumping in and putting their prices up all the time in every walk of life because they can now, because of the pandemic, and also because they need to. Yeah. So, they're always blaming a government, whichever government's in, they're always blaming it. But, you're not going to stop companies putting prices up.
No.
What I think it is, and I think the reason that I blame the government is because at that point, you've got these market economics changing prices. You know, we've got Brexit, we've got international supply chains being disrupted because of the pandemic, because of war in Ukraine, all the rest of it. But that's where you need the government and good financial policies to balance the impact on us. You know,
but there's an awful lot to balance. There's an awful lot to balance right now.
But
it's all well and good sort of saying...
what I would ask you then on that front is, what does that mean? How do you balance that to give people more money in their pocket?
So you don't prioritise trying to bring down the UK national debt. You go, you know, we save up, we have these robust policies for the rainy day. Crikey, folks, it is raining right now. So you spend. You don't raise things like national insurance, which hit everybody, regardless of whether you're earning $7.50 an hour or £70 an hour.
But when you look at the things like the national debt, which is all dull and boring for most of us to even try and think about, we're spending billions of pounds every week on servicing that debt. So you want to bring it down in order to then have more money in your pocket.
But do you want that to be brought down by removing access to families for support? Do you want to bring it down by making people queue up for food banks? Do you want to bring it down by saying, sorry, your elderly mother is going to get one 15-minute visit a week because otherwise we'd have to actually raise taxes?
But it's not a direct correlation between... It's not as simple as that, is it?
I think to some extent... I mean, unless you really want to get into the nitty-gritty and become, you know, the head of the Bank of England, yes, it is. You choose the political party who is going to represent your interests. And I find it hilarious. I was saying to Pete just earlier, I don't understand how we are in a world, some kind of strange parallel universe, where someone who is earning the minimum wage in one of those northern cities, pick Bolton, for example, saying, oh, yeah, Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg, all that lot, yeah, they're on my side. They're the people who care about what matters to me. What world do we live in?
You mentioned
these people who are leading our government now have the support of the British public. It baffles me.
You mentioned food banks. The problem now is food banks are struggling because people are now hanging on to what they've got and are not putting in to food banks. Charities are struggling, but this is an awful lot to do with the pandemic.
I know, but
an awful lot to do with the pandemic.
Do something about it.
Don't you think they
but
will?
the money doesn't grow on trees. You can't just pluck it.
Don't you think they will come a general election through sheer political expediency? They will do something to make us feel warm and cuddly just before a general election?
Well, maybe, but I don't think lots of families can wait that long because people are really suffering, really struggling. And the bottom line is those older people who are looking at the last few years of their life, those kids who are coming in and living in real poverty, it changes their life chances.
Scrap all the green levies then?
No. Keep them because that is what ensures a better future for those kids.
Maybe so does balancing the economy.
But maybe what you should do is actually tax those who can afford it. People with massive landed assets, they don't get inheritance tax. The things where people actually have
inheritance tax.
In the back.
Why should... Right, I'm towards the end of my life. I've got a few bob and I've earned every penny and I've paid tax every day of my life. Why should I pay death duties? Give me one reason why I should pay death duties.
Because you care about the next generation.
No, I've cared about the next generation. I've cared about the next generation by paying my tax. By paying my tax. I pay my tax every single week and right through the pandemic. And I was one of the 5.5 million people that got nothing from the government. Nobody gave me that for 2 years. Why should I pay death duties? It makes me so angry that you've just hit a real nerve with me there.
Then go and live on a rock. Because if you're part of society...
But I'm giving!
I'm
76. I've given for 76 years. Yeah. I've paid tax all my life.
You'll have a heart attack if you carry on.
Well, then I'll pay death duties and save the country.
I don't want you to do it here in the studio.
Inheritance tax does seem... I mean, I know that something has to be paid, but to try and up it and all the rest... I mean, it just... It's like paying tax... You do pay tax on it. You pay tax on tax on tax on tax.
Wealth creates more wealth than not. So if you've got money, it makes money. If you haven't got any money, you're screwed. Pete, your generation, and I'm not saying it's your fault, and I think it's a wonderful thing, you grew up with a free NHS. You grew up with an educational system that mostly worked. You grew up with secure employment. You grew up with a lot of people in your generation with a pension that you could rely on. You've benefited from triple lock, so that things like state pensions have been protected, whereas benefits for people who are in working age get nothing.
Yeah, but everything you just said, I've paid into.
Yeah.
I've paid into the NHS, I've paid into my... I've had...
a 22-year-old who's working hard and paying their taxes, but they're getting much less out of the system. And
you mean the ones that are
fair.
out drinking all the time and partying because they don't put money away in a pension? They don't put money away in a pension. They don't put money away in a pension.
On that note,
I did without.
Calm down, everybody, though.
We've got to leave it there for now. We may come back to you, though. We may do.